This is episode 1133.
If this same organization was what we were building, say 5 years ago, I would have at least 3 additional entry-level kind of clerk type folks just to deal with the volume of invoices and transactions and paper that came through the business, which I don't have to have now. I have a very lean team that is able to transact and process accurately and efficiently in a way that was an idea, but not a reality, only a few years ago. It's made the team stronger. It's made the data more accurate, more efficient. And for us, I think we're always looking for how to improve. And I don't mean just from a technology perspective, but even for simple things like SOPs. And even what seems the most mundane of tasks really get elevated because now you have time to understand it, review it, edit it, validate it. Whereas before you spent so much time just coming up with it that, you're exhausted by the time you got those couple of SOPs written.
Every now and then, a CFO steps into a company that seems to be rewriting the rules as it grows and decides to rewrite a few finance rules along the way. That's what struck me about this conversation with Cymbiotika CFO Kimberlee Duval. Here's a company scaling from digital shelves to 1,900 Target stores, still bootstrapped, still independent. Here's a finance leader who insists that technology and trust, not headcount, will power the next chapter. It's a story about how discipline and daring can coexist, and what happens when finance leads, not follows, the brand's evolution. Our talk with CFO Kimberlee Duval begins after this. Hello, CFO Kimberlee Duval is with us. Kimberlee brings more than 2 decades of finance leadership across multiple industries. Her experience includes guiding organizations through IPO readiness, M&A, capital raises, and business transformations. At Cymbiotika, she is focused on scaling a wellness brand that is expanding across e-commerce and retail channels today. Kimberlee, welcome.
Hi, it's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I love your path because I was looking back. It's just filled with different types of industries and fast-growing companies along the way, which always makes for a sort of an adventurous career, Kimberlee. But I'll let you tell us, go back in time for us and share, if you wouldn't mind, some of those experiences you feel prepared you to become a CFO. And I should mention, I think you've had three CFO appointments. Maybe there's more, correct me, but 3 CFO appointments. We're asking you to go further back and try to help us understand better how you first stepped into the CFO role.
Honestly, I was very fortunate. I got a very tiny, brand new startup who was looking for a director of finance. It was my first step in. It was a Series A company. Kleiner Perkins was the venture capital firm at the time, and it was in biotech. And I somehow knocked their socks off with my ability to budget, forecast, and really think about the organization as a whole. And within about 3 months, I was promoted into the CFO role.
Wow. So you came in sort of as a senior finance executive, and they said, yes, she's up for it.
Yeah.
Let's let her have it.
Told the CEO stop looking. Just she's got the job.
How did you get it so nailed down? Where were you that you acquired these skills?
I was fortunate in my career. I've had some really great mentors. I've worked in a variety of organizations at that time, very small all the way through very large multinational public companies, and really had the opportunity to move around. I was always the gal that didn't necessarily know how to do, but would go figure it out. I would raise my hand and say, I don't know, but give me give me some time. I'll go find out, and then execute. I learned to listen very early in my career and not to assume that I knew better than the swim lane owner. And it gave me an opportunity to really understand business as a whole rather than just through the lens of the finance person. So it gave me an opportunity, I think, to build the trust across multi-departments and to really align strategic strategy around the financials, as opposed to being part of the necessary evil that can sometimes cloud people's idea of what a finance leader is supposed to be.
So you arrive sort of as an accountant into the professional world, I would say. You were an accounting specialist.
Yeah.
And finance becomes your lane. When do you think you're headed to finance leadership? Which, early chapter did you finally say, I want to be a leader here?
Yeah, I was with a company called Thoratech. And it was a very large national company. There was M&A that needed to be done. It's where I did my first ERP and BI tool implementations, and really gave me the bug to understand that I could do more, that I could be more than just a cog in the wheel, and that I really thought that finance, accounting, back office needed a bigger seat at the table to really help drive strategy, to help those leaders understand how the impact of their decisions had across the broader organization, and to really partner through. And it was very exciting. I had a great mentor that was in the business development area, and he took me under his wing, John Shear, and really just showed me what was possible, as opposed to, I think, the limits that we tend to put ourselves on when you've got a CPA license and you're supposed to be doing what, taxes? No, that wasn't enough for me.
Yeah.
So that was really the pivotal, I think, shift in my thinking, was those opportunities I had there.
I think that's so important. You're emphasizing, or you're spotlighting for us, the role mentors have, in part, who gave you the confidence, who said, yes, you can do this. Come, help us. And it wasn't about necessarily, and I'm sure it became about titles, but it sounds like you were, your mentors were saying, just take on these opportunities. What can you reflect a little bit about, what your mindset as far as titles was or wasn't?
To be honest, I've always been fine. Call me the janitor. I just want to do good work. There's a fun commercial out there that calls the CFO the Chief Fix-It Officer. And I think that I've always really embodied that. It's not about job title. It's not about the job description per se. It's really about looking across the table to say what needs to be done. How can I bring my skill set, my business acumen, my experience forward to support the common goal of the organization, of the shareholders, the CEO? And if we can get alignment across that table, it really transforms organizations, and it creates so much more opportunity, not just to get things done, but to get things done well, scalable, and really ready for the next chapter. And I think a lot of people get very caught up in the current chapter, the current pain points, as opposed to really thinking beyond that moment and themselves to understand the value that can be brought when you really take a moment and think beyond, and the time it saves, the energy it saves, the opportunities to build that trust and relationships across. I'm still great friends with so many people in operations, marketing, sales, because of that. And that's made me a stronger leader. It's made me better at my job. And it's made me that much better for the next company that I join.
What role did technology play a role in this as well? You just talked about sales and what have you, but I imagine you had mentioned earlier a technology adoption. You weren't intimidated by that either, I suspect.
No, I'm a tech girl for some reason. The past 20 years, I've led many ERP RFPs, over a dozen NetSuite implementation optimization projects across various industries. Each project sharpened my ability to align finance with operations, scale systems for growth, and drive cross-functional collaboration. And I think those embracing the technology has really allowed for a much stronger, much better, not just systems and tools, but finances and the ability to drive to scale.
Because that's really your intersection of your career, finance and business growth. What are the biggest lessons, like as you enter a new organization that is beginning to experience growth? And, you've seen that movie before at some earlier chapters in your career. What are the lessons you're bringing to them? What is it that you're saying, here's what we better be thinking about?
Well, I think throughout my career, I've held CFO and senior finance roles where I was tasked with transforming accounting and finance from a transactional back office function, again, the necessary evil, into a true strategic partner. Across many growth stage companies and M&A transactions, I've led initiatives that involve restructuring those teams, implementing scalable forecasting models, integrating newly acquired entities into unified systems and workflows. Those experiences really taught me how to lead through change, build trust across the departments, and align the financial strategy with the broader business goals. At the core of every transformation was a focus on creating clarity, enabling agility, and ensuring finance could proactively support decision-making, not just report on it.
Did you, and I'm curious, we always like to, before we ask you about Cymbiotika, we'd like to know, and again, you outlined that nicely for us, how you arrived in that first CFO office. Was there a headhunter involved in that? Was it executive search, or is this your network? And I'm sure it's a little bit of both, but can you just tell us about your career building years and whether you relied on, executive recruiters as well as your network?
For sure, a combination of both. In the beginning, I think you assume that headhunters are going to be expensive, difficult, and I'm not really sure where to even start. Up until that first role at Thoratech, I had not used headhunters, other than word of mouth of somebody who knew somebody else. And oddly enough, this was a similar situation where a headhunter had reached out to another coworker who was not interested in making a move. He referred me to that headhunter, and that is when I had my first real experience with using an executive recruiter. And Shri was great. She helped me through a number of roles over time in those probably first 10, 12 years. But as my own network started to grow, that's when I stopped needing to rely so much and was able to really focus in on where do I want to go, what do I want to do, and learned how to network better myself, to be honest. It wasn't a strength of mine, for sure. It's something I've really had to work hard at learning how to do better. And so since then, it's really been a mix match. referrals from prior CEOs and or other, finance leaders, recruiters who get my name from those folks, and or just me hitting the pavement and knocking on doors for who it is that I want to go work for.
Well, I do. We do have some more questions related to that. We'll touch on with you, I think, in the mentoring round, if that's all right. That's our final minutes together. Right now, let's find out about Cymbiotika. Tell us about this latest chapter, this company. What is it about? What are its offerings?
So Cymbiotika is a wellness brand focused on delivering premium bioavailable supplements that support holistic health. I think what sets us apart is our commitment to transparency, scientific integrity, and customer education, particularly in the VMS space. We're not just selling products, we're building a movement around intentional living.
I know that it raised some debt financing last year. Can you just share with us a little bit about its capital structure?
It has been bootstrapped all along. Our two owners, Sherveen and Shahab, really have just done everything direct. They have focused in on trying to build an organization for the long term and didn't want to have PE or VC come in and tell them that they couldn't make these more expensive, more complex, better products, moving away from the powders and pills that so many of us are used to when it comes to supplements. So in doing that, took on some debt, had an opportunity to move into Sprouts in early 2024. So took on some debt. The launch from DTC to retail is very expensive, not just the inventory and all that comes with getting yourself set up for such a larger scale, but really it's also the terms, right? They want the product 2 to 3 months in advance to get it on their shelves, which means it's going to take you 6 to 8 months to really get your cash back. So with that, and then the incredible success we saw at Sprouts, we were the only company named in their Q2 earnings release this last year. Because of that success, that then drove us to the next step, which was putting some better, more robust financing in place. Again, not really ready to go out and give a piece of the company away yet relative to a PE or VC funding. So instead to debt, set ourselves up, and we launch and target in a week and a half in all 1,988 stores. So it's paying off.
Well, we appreciate the time you're giving to us here. We imagine it's quite a crunch period for you. Hey, so as the company scales across both e-commerce and retail channels, what's your team up to? I mean, your FP&A professionals? I mean, have you split them, or what does your organization look like from a finance team perspective? Yeah.
Well, I've definitely restructured the finance function to align with that growth strategy. That's included, centralizing operations in NetSuite, building out FP&A and cost accounting capabilities, and creating clear SOPs for scale. NetSuite's been a big part of that for us in allowing us to streamline reporting, improve visibility, and support cross-functional decision-making. But the team members and really driving in, going from a broad breadth to more narrow swim lanes relative to each of the finance and accounting team members has really been vital to getting us ready for where we're at today.
Are your people going to be dedicated, whether it's retail or e-commerce? Are you splitting them, or are you looking to rotate them in and out in some fashion?
To be honest, I think we're at that point where there's no reason to segregate between the groups. Retail is up and coming. It's growing. It will have certain humans that will, of course, be dedicated just by nature of transaction flow. Accounts receivable don't need that in D2C because it's Shopify, right? It's pay as you go, where retail so clearly. For FP&A and for cost accounting, however, in order to really have leverage, to really ensure that we're looking again across the entirety of the organization as opposed to getting tunnel vision. For me, I find it's very important to have my team be able to look across. Now, that does not mean that over time that won't change, and as we continue to grow and build, but our intention is really to use our systems and tools, use AI, use different modules and workflow opportunities within systems and tools, as opposed to needing to necessarily build out an overly robust accounting and finance organization, because you start to lose some real information when you start to have too much separation between, especially for synergies and for opportunities where one person may see, another person may not. And how do you bring those together? We're a team and we're united, and we've got a common purpose and a common goal, which means being able to look across the entirety.
So sort of having been in other organizations at perhaps the same stage in the past, from a day-to-day perspective, what type of information are you looking to into these systems, into these tools that you're using? How are they delivering you, on a daily basis? What are you seeing that is allowing the company to make decisions more?
I think it's, taking a company from just reporting the facts to really understanding the dynamics that create those facts, right? Exposing those metrics that connect customer behavior with financial performance. CAC and inventory turnover, contribution margin. Yes, those are all fantastic and great, but what we really need to do we have a substantial subscription base. So what's my churn risk by cohort? What's my trial to subscription conversion rates? Channel specific product velocity, customer lifetime values segmented by those acquisition sources. These are all very important as we think about not just growth and getting to the day-to-day of supporting inventory or marketing, but really driving the organization, especially as we move deeper into retail and exposing the channel-specific profitability and sell-through dynamics. Those are not just financial metrics. You've got to bring the rest of the company, the rest of those swim lanes, if you will, together to really be able to make it actionable.
So I think you stepped into the CFO office there like a year and a half ago, roughly. And I always like customer lifetime value is a calculation many CFOs tweak throughout. Has that evolved since you arrived? Have you learned a few things and said we need to calculate this a little differently, or think about it a little differently? What would you share with us on your customer lifetime value journey?
Oh, for sure. I think that it's also, it's a symptom. We want the best metrics that we could possibly have, and you put them out there, and then somebody like me comes into the organization and they're, wait, wow, you're messing with my metrics, man. Yes, yes, I am. But it's because they need to be reputable. They need to be repeatable. They need to be calculatable from the outside. As we go into 2026, our intention is to prepare ourselves and do some sort of funding, whether it's PE, VC, or otherwise, which means we need to have that rigor and that accuracy and consistency in all of our metrics. And the lifetime value is one that I think, to your point, can be easily adjusted, and really understanding what are we trying to show with this? Is it revenue? Is it true value, margin, right? Because they're just going to take it and calculate it against your MRR. So you better be able to stand by it. But we've definitely evolved, but I would say evolved more around the data that goes into it and ensuring the accuracy, breaking down our cohorts for the first time in a way that really drove not just information, but helped to support forecasting. I think a lot of companies tend to commingle all of the information and then pop out a number and oh, it looks great, we'll go with that. But in reality, when you need to break it down, you need to understand your subscription base versus your repeat versus your one-time customers, because they behave very differently and they drive your economics and your financials in a very different way. So really exposing that is very important in order for that lifetime value to not just have value, but to be able to be measurable and to help drive you from a forecasting and future outlook perspective, not just in what the numbers from a revenue perspective are going to be, but what do I need to spend to support that? What is my marketing? What do I need to, give marketing a larger piece of the pie for this piece versus that piece? And how does my tech and how does my AI build into those channels to help drive that lifetime value? And I think that those are a lot of areas where people tend to get a little tunnel vision. You've got to look at the broader picture. It's not just about the statistics of the financial metrics. It's about making them actionable.
Is there something that surprised you about the wellness customer realm? I mean, you've looked into very different realms in the past. Does this realm have different behaviors, or would you say, no, as a finance leader, they all look a little bit the same? What would it be?
Yeah, well, I would say it's an interesting question. I was in pharma and med device biotech for many years in the beginning of my career. And I think there was an expectation that consumer was very focused and they wanted information and they were driven by education. That is not actually the case. VMS, that's where it is, especially today's world with so much information available to us, on the internet and, on your phone. Consumers expect a lot more than they ever have. And they expect a transparency and a truthfulness that I don't think has really existed in the VMS space historically. It unfortunately has a bit of the snake oil salesman kind of, thought. But with the holistic movement, with COVID coming in and really showing how important our health is and how we need to focus in on it, not just after we're sick, but to prevent illness and to keep ourselves stronger and healthier, that really drives the consumer to be much more inquisitive. They want test results. They want to see and know that what you're saying is in fact true. And how is it that you versus a competitor are differentiating yourselves? Organic, I think, was a great idea for a long time, but there was no definition for so long of what really meant organic. I learned that artificial flavors actually does not mean what I thought it was. There's a lot of artificial flavors, even though people say they don't have it in there. And really, the consumer today differentiates that, and they want to understand it, they want to know it, and they want a brand that stands behind everything that they put out in the world.
This being your third CFO appointment, I believe, reflect a little for us about hiring and how maybe it's changed, where you think back in time and how finding people and onboarding people might have been different. Or maybe you looked for different skill sets in the past for certain roles. Has anything changed, or is it just the same old?
I would say yes. It's changed. I think especially for larger, organizations with more infrastructure. For startups and high growth companies, I think it's relatively the same, which is you need people that are not just educated, smart. They went to college, they got a degree. That's great. Critical thinking. The world of data entry and processing is really going away between AI and tools like NetSuite, where you've got modules that do bill capture and automate, and it's no longer an opportunity where you can start from the bottom and work your way up. In that, you really kind of have to come to the table with some strong capabilities like you've never had to before. And I think a lot of it really drives in critical thinking, especially in a smaller organization or in a fast-paced growth situation, because you've got to be able to think quickly, think for yourself, make decisions, move forward to keep things apace because they go so fast. Whereas 10, 12 years ago, there was an expectation of check-in, and you must ask, and you must validate, and you must this. The tools and systems do that for you. You don't have to do that anymore. Now you need to take the data and know what to do with it. How and who do I bring this forward to? How and what do I make actionable and informative, as opposed to just knocking the task off my list? I think that's made a huge difference in not just how hiring is done, but really career advancement within any organization. I've had really great, smart people that just could not get through to that critical thinking, and it made work more difficult. It caused issues with bottlenecking and workflows. And I think as AI and these modules and these ERP systems that are getting broader and bigger and smarter, BI tools, they really, really force that thought process, that critical thinking capability is now your greatest asset.
Well, we're already, I guess, in some ways talking about AI. We want to explore it a little more with you. And as far as, let's begin with efficiency. How is your finance organization currently using AI to improve efficiency?
Oh, well, AI for us is a specific company strategy for adopting and integrating. We are taking a phased approach. We've already implemented some NetSuite AI-driven tools like bill capture. We're targeting Supply 360 for smarter inventory planning early next year. But we're also exploring it for customer support and product development, especially in analyzing feedback and scientific research to how we bring products together and forward to our consumers.
You know, is there, what measurable impact have you seen so far on cost savings or speed?
Well, I would say this, if this same organization was what we were building, say 5 years ago, I would have at least 3 additional entry-level kind of clerk type folks just to deal with the volume of invoices and transactions and paper that came through the business, which I don't have to have now. I have a very lean team that is able to transact and process accurately and efficiently in a way that was an idea, but not a reality, only a few years ago. It's made the team stronger. It's made the data more accurate, more efficient. And for us, I think we're always looking for how to improve. And I don't mean just from a technology perspective, but even for simple things like SOPs. Use GChat, Copilot. They can write them for you. Put it together and now go tweak it. Make it better. Make it our own. You don't necessarily have to start from scratch the way you used to. And I think AI has been a huge opportunity for that in even what seems the most mundane of tasks really get elevated, because now you have time to understand it, review it, edit it, validate it. Whereas before you spent so much time just coming up with it that, you're exhausted by the time you got those couple of SOPs written. And now you can be focused on things that really make a difference. That's important. You've got to have it. But I'm not spending, or our team members not spending 3 days writing it. They're spending a half a day. And now that other 2.5 days, they're doing things that really add value to the day-to-day operations of the company. So it makes a significant difference in our organization, as I'm sure it does in so many others, especially when speed and lean are so important.
Where do you think, where do you see the biggest opportunity then for AI to create business value for Cymbiotika?
I do think it's the customer experience and product development. One of the projects we're working on now is actually creating an integration between our customer support, ticketing, and NetSuite, so that we can drive information between the two systems to allow for our customer experience folks to be able to be more knowledgeable and supportive relative to the customer's requests, their needs. They've returned something. Why? Have they returned it more than once? Why? Is there an issue with the volume of product they're getting on a subscription that we should consider making changes to the frequency, product development? What's giving them pause? What are they asking questions about? Are there ingredients that they don't trust, that they need more information on? That information can then get shared with our marketing team, with our R&D team, to be able to really drive with really good integrated information direct from the consumer, which we wouldn't be able to get any other way. So by really bringing these parts of our organizations together and to make them actionable information to drive not just meeting customer expectations, but the future of the products. What do they want? What's necessary? How do we prove out and add testing information to our website, for example, on an ingredient that they might be a little bit concerned about, or there might be some misinformation or a lack of information on? Well, let's get it out there so that they can see it and we can help them understand it, not just from our perspective, but more globally from a scientific, data driven. And I think that that's where the world's really, really shifting, is data. They want, prove it. It's great that you say it, prove it. And by using AI to bring these pieces of mutually exclusive data together to make them cohesive, really can drive not just an opportunity from a growth, but really an improved customer experience, therefore brand trust and overall valuation.
Curious how you might be prioritizing those opportunities, just given what you just shared, how big this opportunity could be in creating value for the company, this customer relationship realm. How do we make certain our customer support people are valuing this type of information? How can we flag it for them to, make it top of mind? And I'm sure the tools are helping you do that, but is there something you did as a leader, or, where you spend your time on a weekly basis? We might be surprised to learn, just given the opportunity that you see here, you yourself personally have sought to play a bigger role or amplify it in some way.
Well, I would say this. I'm a big believer in the cross-functional. We were recently implementing some new processes out of our Shopify tool into our NetSuite tool. And I sat down with our CX team. I want you to tell me what you're seeing. What are you hearing? How? And then taking that information and bringing it forward to how it affects the organization, how that data can become actionable, where and how they should be thinking about raising the flag, so to speak, right? It's not just about telling somebody that there's been a complaint. It's about telling people and bringing the data together to help drive improvement, efficiency. And I think spending time across the organization in different areas where they may not understand how finance could possibly support or be, impacted by them. We're just customer service. Yes, you're customer service. You're my most important link too. The most important part of our business. And explaining the why. This is what this means, but this is why it's important. This is why we need you to be thoughtful and thinking about it. This is why we need to integrate systems and have reason codes for things that make sense, that then can create opportunities, not just for you in CX to service the customer better, but for the organization as a whole to then take that information and drive improvement, efficiency, and opportunity.
Is it a fair statement to say that Kimberlee's third CFO tour of duty, she has been explaining the why more than any time in her career?
I think that my prior years of experience, both prior to my CFO roles, I spent about 10 years consulting in a variety of roles, and then going back to the CFO role, and the why is imperative for people, I think, especially now, than it ever has before. No one wants to be told. They want to understand. That's great that you want me to do that. Yeah. But why? Why should I care when the finance leader comes in and tells me that they want a report or a data set that contains these attributes? Well, here's why. And let me explain and give you an opportunity to ask questions. You're going to be better for it. I'm going to be better for it. The organization's going to be better for it. And I think that there was once a time where why was almost a 4-letter word. It was just do as you're told and get it done. And, in that world, I think, has changed so dramatically. I'm a mother of 6. My youngest is 22. My oldest is 30. Believe me, my children have trained me to be much more efficient, effective, and a better leader.
Why? All right. Thank you for those. We are up to what we like to refer to as our finance strategic moment question. And I might have mentioned up front when we were talking before we hit the record button, we're looking for a good story, Kimberlee. Look back in time and a moment where you experienced insight of some kind. What do you have for us when it comes to a finance strategic moment?
There have been many. I naturally gravitate toward high growth, early stage environments where strategic finance moments are not rare. They're constant. As a CFO in these settings, I've learned that the real value comes from understanding the business beyond the numbers. When you engage deeply with your operating partners, listen to their challenges, respect boundaries of each function, you build the trust needed to act on strategic insights as opposed to just observing them. One pivotal moment came at a previous e-commerce company during a period of rapid geographic expansion. Right before and throughout COVID, our fulfillment and compliance needs were evolving quickly, as you can imagine. Inventory procurement, what had become increasingly fluid. I recognized that our existing systems just could not support the complexity we were facing. That realization led to a full ERP overhaul, implementation of new modules, adoption of integrations. It also highlighted the urgent need for clearer ownership and accountability across the organization. The transformation was not only enabled to be successful by that expansion, but also repositioned finance as a strategic driver of growth and operational resilience. Bringing those people in those organizations together to help them understand what was happening in the other parts of the organization. The impact COVID was having not just on who was showing up or able to work today, but in how we were getting the product we needed. How were we getting it out the door? Compliance in an international geography is extraordinarily difficult and cumbersome. And being able to really drive processes, workflows, integrations that could allow us to spend less time entering data and more time strategically thinking about how and what and problem solving. That was a long, hard lesson.
Can you, I'm wondering if you could zero in for us on a specific moment that you realized the transformation was complete, or, a pivotal moment where there was a decision made and it made all the difference?
I think procurement, we had procurement through a variety of different individuals. There were a number of entities within this organization, and there was no centralization. There was right hand, left hand was having real difficulties with communicating. Once we were able to implement NetSuite in a way that allowed for full visibility of inventory and the drive of ownership, we shifted from individual kind of country owners to a larger overseeing group, team member, to which then could look across. We finally hit for the first time in, I don't know, probably took about 10 months, where we not only had an out-of-stock ratio of less than 1%, but had a complete fulfillment within 48 hours for the first time. It really drove home not just the value of the work that was done, but how important it was. That company went on to take those improvements and hit the $500 million mark in revenues, having gone from about $140 million when we first started the project and right before COVID. So it was instrumental, not only driving revenue and efficiencies and probably a few gray hairs getting reduced, but not only was revenue substantively growing year over year, but EBITDA was as well. So it really drove both the top and the bottom line. And that really gave the organization an opportunity to go, wait a second, we need to really, really embody this new thought processes, these new workflows, bringing finance to the table as a partner, as opposed to an afterthought or somebody to fix it later, really changed for that organization. And ultimately, it was one of my prouder moments, I would say, is being able to walk away from that project after 18 months and knowing, man, they're going to do this, they're going to do it well, and they've continued to exceed my expectations.
We're going to jump to what we like to call the mentoring round. And I'm going to change my first question. Usually I ask a different one, but I'd like you to look all the way back for us, because I think, and you touched on this a little bit when we talked about hiring today, what advice would you give to your younger self if you were starting out in accounting finance today?
Your job just isn't about the numbers. It's about influence and strong leadership. Really building trust across departments, communicating those financial insights in a way that drives action is just as important as technical expertise. I think we tend to get caught up in, I've got my degree, I've got my CPA license, that's great. However, what are you going to do with it? How are you really going to be a value add to the organization, to the team? That comes from something far more than just technical ability. I've known some great technical accountants, but they're not driving strategy. They're not being asked to come to the table to participate in the decision making and in the determination of the future growth, how it's going to be done, who's going to be there to support it. And I think that's a big differential. And I wish somebody had told me a little earlier, for sure. But it's something I embrace now, and it's really important for anyone out there who's considering what are they going to do with their lives. Accounting sounds boring. Finance sounds boring. No, it really has an incredible opportunity to be the best job you'll ever have in your life.
One of the, I think, interesting shares that you've had with us early in your career, your mentors, the emphasis you put on them, you name some of them by name. And I'm going to make a statement and you can correct me or reflect more on it. You're someone who didn't necessarily have to think hard how to find a mentor. Mentors found you.
I would say I was really against mentors. I just kind of assumed that they were all out for themselves. I'll be honest with you in the beginning.
What does that mean? Meaning that these people reached out to you and they were just trying to rope you into helping them with something.
I didn't grow up in the best of circumstances, so I had a pretty low idea of what people were really after. And so my skepticism, I think, prevented opportunities that maybe could have presented themselves or I could have taken advantage of early in my career. And I grew up at a time where women were not commonplace in senior leadership roles. So for me, the few women leaders, mentors could have tended to either be the barracuda or the pushover. And I didn't want to be either. I really wanted to find that middle, to be mentored well from a career and a personal development perspective, and then be able to pay that forward later. And I think in the first few years, it was that skepticism that held me back just from what I saw. However, that one person opens that door for you and you start to see what's possible. And the door got shattered. And I am forever grateful because it wasn't one person. I was fortunate. There were a few people that were each trying to help me in a different way. And by really opening myself up to being wrong, to not knowing everything, to being available to make time for my own career development were huge pieces that mentoring can only work if you have all of that. It's not just about somebody reaching out their hand to say, hey, let me help you. You've got to be open. You got to be ready. You have to be willing to be wrong and to accept advice and to understand how it's intended for the positive.
And what I think is this discussion is important because I think there are a lot of young accounting professionals who are wondering what the future might hold, given all of what they've read about AI and their own organization talking about it. What does it mean for me? That to have the door open to cross-functional opportunities sooner could be more critical to understand the business more broadly sooner. And that can happen in these fast-growing environments, smaller companies that have these type of opportunities that you first experienced.
Oh,
how am I doing?
That's spot on. I think that the biggest opportunity that young people have today is one, being willing, taking that leap of faith, asking questions, listening to the other side of the table. Rather than just going in problem solving and I'm here to rescue you or make things better, or you must do as I've told you because this financial metric requires it. If you can put that aside and focus on the broader, bigger picture, really understand and not just their pain points, but how and where the intersection of what they do and what you do come together, and how you can work together to build and improve and optimize, make things more efficient. Hey, even just communicating sooner can sometimes drive an incredible opportunity. I think that we tend to talk more than we listen. And when we do that, we miss a lot. And it's not just an opportunity of fixing things. It's an opportunity to really develop from a career perspective, from a strategic mindset, to really add value in the mid to long term. not a quick fix. You're not going to sit down one time and have a conversation with somebody and then walk away with all kinds of great things you're going to go do. But you know what? If you spend time with that person or that group a couple of times and keep your mind open and then go talk to people who understand a little bit more than maybe you do, to help you bring that together, that's where the value, that's where the art of finance and accounting really come together. And there's a lot more art than science than people, I think, realize. But you got to start there. You got to start listening.
Yep. We always like to have our guests reflect a little on the personal side with us. You shared 6 children. I don't think I've heard that size family in recent days here on this podcast anyway by a CFO. Tell us something more about yourself. I mean, that's clearly, I'm just thinking management skills, right? It's another stripe on your sleeve, how to manage both professional and personal life together. That's quite a sizable family. But tell us something about yourself. That's certainly, that's going to be hard to beat.
I'm a pretty transparent person, and that openness has been the key to my success.
Yeah.
But things that surprise people, yes, I'm a mother of 6. I'm a mentor. I'm a strategic finance executive that thrives in high growth environments. I think one of the most important lessons and things that I live by is taking care of your people is your first priority. Whether it's supporting career development, listening and engaging, even when I can't fix something immediately, helping my team to build an ever-evolving skill set changes that startups and scaling companies require. It's important that they know that they matter. And I think that being a mother of 6, being a mentor, being in strategic finance really brings that together for me in a way that helps me be more valuable. People are most valuable asset that a company has. And when they feel seen and heard and supported, they show up with purpose. And that's when real transformation happens. And that's what I'm all about.
Because we're also on video today, our listeners might not appreciate this, but there is a number on your wall. It looks like an athletic tag of some kind. May I ask about it, or are you?
Yes.
May I ask about it, or are you?
I was a marathoner for many years.
That's what it looked like. Is that a New York marathon?
That one actually is the Rock and Roll San Diego inaugural marathon. Okay. It was some years ago, but yes, I've run five full marathons and 10 half marathons.
Really?
Wow. After my youngest was born, it was time to do something for me, and went and raised money for the American Heart Association to do my first one, got my training, and then loved it until I blew my knee. So.
Yeah. Ouch. Sorry to hear that. I am embarrassed to have to ask this next question. Since you have so much time on your hands, do you have a book recommendation for us? We know you just kick it. It doesn't have to be a business book. It just might have been something that influenced you along the way, or what? Anything?
Yeah. So, I just finished getting my master's in law, by the way. So I've read a lot of books over the last 2 years. But I would say my favorite book right now is Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. Really powerful reminder that true leadership is about creating environments where people feel safe, valued, empowered. As finance leaders, I think we tend to focus on numbers and strategy, but culture is just as critical. The ability to build trust and foster a sense of belonging can transform not just a team, but an entire company. So there's a dozen technical books I could recommend for sure. But I would also read books that challenge people to grow as people first leaders, because that's where the real impact begins.
Nice selection for us. Thank you for that. We are up to our final question. I'm sorry we ran a little long, but we're interested in your CFO priorities for the coming 12 months. What would those be?
Oh, supporting Cymbiotika's retail expansion with scalable systems and processes. For sure, number one. Enhancing our financial visibility across those channels, driving operational efficiency through automation and AI is another big one for us. And then the near and dear to the finance leaders out there, strengthening our FP&A capabilities to support and strengthen our decision making. We've put a big investment in NetSuite this year. We've done a big investment in retail and bringing that backbone of data automation and cross-functional alignment to support those priorities for the next 12 plus months. Imperative.
Kimberlee Duval, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.